One of the mysteries of our world is how every photon of light, every electron and quark, and indeed every point of space itself seems to just know what to do at each moment. The mystery is that these tiniest parts of the universe have no mechanisms or structures by which to make such decisions. Only God, the algorithm, could make those decisions.
I'd like to welcome to the show Marshall Sims and Bernard Heisch. How you guys doing?
Doing
We're
okay.
great. Glad to be here with you,
Yeah.
Alex.
I'm excited to talk to you guys today because I've had many quantum physicists on, but I've not had any astrophysicists on before. And it's a different perspective on the universe an astrophysicist has, generally
Yeah.
speaking. So my very first question to you is, how do you balance the empirical evidence with faith or belief in your professional and personal lives?
Well, some of this comes about by looking at the rules of science, rules of physics, say, or astrophysics, and just seeing how they fit together. And do they fit together, or is there some major problem? And I think it's possible to have these two disciplines simultaneously in hand, and both of them um, pro- propounding rules for the universe that are consistent with religion.
Yeah, I think it might be important to go back to how did Bernie get interested in God and astrophysics?
Fair enough.
That kind of answers
Oh,
your question about how he balances it. So, ever since he was a little boy, he always felt very spiritual and he felt a strong connection to God. He was raised Catholic and he studied to be a Catholic priest. And he used to line all of his stuffed animals up on a bed in his bedroom and feed them communion. And he got quite a charge out of that. It made him feel like this reward, like he was connecting to God. Um, so he did study to be a Catholic priest, but he always had an interest in the stars. Always. It just, if you look up at the night sky, he'd be amazed at the wonder of the universe. And so astrophysics uh, became more prominent, more important to him. And he also wanted to be able to have relationships with the female sex. So, yeah, when you're a priest, you have to kind of be secluded. And so he decided to study astrophysics at the Indiana University in Bloomingdale.
Bloomington.
Bloomington. Oh, Bloomingdale's is a department
Yeah.
store store in Bloomington. And let's see, I do want to add that he had this faith from being a child, and a lot of times it's something you have to have an intuition on because it has to go on how you feel.
Mhm.
But logically, as an astrophysicist, he was taught to think like a scientist. And the National Academy of Sciences states that science is measuring things in the physical world. Everything to do with the physical world, analysis, measuring, doing experiments, testing it, making theories. So he's really good at doing all that. But the National Academy of Sciences says that science has nothing to do with religion or spirituality because that's something you can't measure. And you can't measure God really. You can
Mm.
intuit that there's a God. It's like, how do you know if somebody loves you? You can't, there's no love meter that you could place on that person.
Other than at the carnivals, there's those love meters for like 25 cents, but yes.
But you could judge on the response you get,
Right.
right? If a person loves you, they'll go out of their way to do really nice things for you. They'll be compassionate. They'll be generous. They'll be sweet and kind. And so that's how God is to us. Bernie has gotten many answers to prayer with God, and he always felt that intuition when he was serving communion to his stuffed animals.
Right, right.
Well, how else do you want to balance it, Bernie?
Well, balance is kind of a sub-theme in this book because um, this is something that's written for people from basically two walks of life. One is the side where there's no religion uh, held or tolerated or in any way um, held,
People are fearful about hell. They're fearful
right.
about God's power. Yeah.
And
They follow dogma and sets of rules that their faith or their religion sets out for them.
right they
Yeah.
right
But science doesn't have anything to do with that.
right
No, it's possible to be a scientist and to be spiritual,
Mm.
but you have to be open enough to see the spiritual side. I think that's how he balances it, really. He's open.
But it's very interesting too because again, I've spoken to so many physicists who've come on the show in different fields of physics, and they, the ones that come on the show generally have an open mind to spirituality, as a
Yeah.
general statement. But most in the general space don't really talk about spirituality, though more and more, I'd say now than ever before, are coming out publicly talking about consciousness, talking about um, quantum physics is really starting to open a bunch of doors into this space. And there's not as much fear. Don't get me wrong, there's still a lot of fear about people coming out of the spiritual closet in physics, but it seems to be a lot more open. Would you guys agree with that?
I would agree with that. Yeah, it's time for there to be well, sort of choices can be made. If you're perfectly neutral about religion, a choice can be made between following down the road of strictly mechanical explanations of things, and the other way is when you find in California, especially the religious
Well, spiritual, not
spiritual,
religion.
yes,
We
Yeah.
actually we don't have the same definition of a religion as we do spirituality, because religion is a set of rules that are set by whatever church anyone's affiliated with,
Mm-hmm.
or specific interpretations of the Bible.
Mm-hmm.
And we're talking more about being attuned to the cosmic consciousness that we co-create the universe with. We are sparks of God.
Mm-hmm.
And so we, as sparks of God, co-create our reality. The and by the way, I want to just say that when we use the term God, we are actually referring to an entity or a consciousness that has no sex. We may say he or she, but God is not a he, he's not a she, he's not a human form, he's not anything that we could actually imagine as human beings. Um, People like to anthropomorphize
Mhm.
God. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, we do not see God as a desert patriarch sitting in a throne with a staff and angels floating around him and continuously praising him
Mm-hmm.
on clouds of light and joy. No, God is a cosmic consciousness. He's a force. It's a great, great force.
Well, let me ask you this. Let's take it back all the way to the beginning, the Big Bang.
Right.
What is the implications of the Big Bang through the lens of spirituality? Because I always had the only problem I've always had with the Big Bang is I get it, it makes all the sense in the world, but what was around before the Big Bang? And
That's
that
the
was always my question.
that's the master question. You're right.
Age
And
old question, right? Yeah.
yeah, and that's in fact one of the things that motivated the book. That I wanted to have a balanced perspective presented that could, show um, the ability of the science and spirituality to live side by side, and perhaps even to get one side to learn from the other. So that's my primary motivation in writing the book.
So we take it back to the very, very root of existence. And so Bernie and I did a lot of research on this. And what we have found, at least this is our current model, and we use a model, by the way. We never say we have all the answers because he's a scientist. He has to have models,
Mhm.
and as you proceed towards understanding your model or proving it, you develop theories about it. So we're always in the process of gathering information. But we came upon the idea of the Ein Sof, which is the vast nothingness that's described in the Kabbalah, the Jewish Kabbalah, the mystical Kabbalah. So we believe at this point that the great cosmic consciousness of God fell out of the Ein Sof and just existed as a while as an awareness, a force, a power. And this existence got very lonely, being all by itself, because all there was for its companion was the Ein Sof, and that doesn't really do anything for you, right? So God decided, I need to have experiences, I need to have companions. So God created this force, we think, the 0-point field, which is a very vast electromagnetic field that's been around since the beginning of the universe. And we can tell you more about that later. He has some ideas for how to tap it. But anyway, this 0-point energy, he used it to create the Big Bang. And so the Big Bang started as an infinitesimal, tiny, tiny little point that had so much pressure. Stop me if I'm not explaining it
We're
right.
going to standard.
Okay, and it just exploded, and the 0-point energy was there with it. And this huge explosion created the universe, all the vast galaxies, star systems, planets, and things evolved from that.
But no, it's not really an explosion because that implies that this happened inside an ordinary space with four-dimensional geometry, and that is now becoming a big question in cosmology among those who are experts in the 0-point field, to try to get some understanding of what there was before time. I mean, you can't have something happening before or after if you don't have an after or before. It's just impossible to try to understand something in our notion of the what space time is to come up with a model. And no one knows how to do this yet because we're trying to get a model of nothing. And if we go back off and say, well, okay, let's go back even further with the idea of nothing, then what made nothing happen?
Well, that's why we got to the Ein Sof, because that was all we could find.
Regress, infinite regress.
Yeah.
And that's both well, I guess it really is a scientific problem. I say it's metaphysical, but I think primarily it's a problem of understanding something that's more complicated than our 3-dimensional, 3+1-dimensional space. And somehow the 0-point field had to come out of that, but how could it? Because you can't make something happen if there's nothing to flow along our time and to make things happen. And we just have no ideas whatsoever at this point, I think, of what kind of thing time is like. If it changes its character from what it is in our ordinary space to something deeper and more profound, that's a big mystery.
That's a big, huge subject, is the subject of time. I mean, as a human being, time is passage of events, how the day changes, the sun rotating, the earth rotating around the sun. And yeah, that's time.
Right, but then time and space is interesting because with quantum entanglement, it is kind of put materialism on notice, if you will, in many ways, because it just defies time and space. And I've spoken to many spiritual masters, I've spoken to a lot of near-death experiencers, and the way that there is no time or space on the other side, according to them, because everything is instant. You think it, you're there. And quantum entanglement is kind of almost like a little bit of a spark, if you will, if I can use that word, of what it is like on the other side. Can you explain quantum entanglement a little bit to people so they really understand what it is and how it's kind of thrown a lot of things upside down?
You can, in a laboratory, set up a situation where you have maybe a bunch of electrons or photons. They're different things, but they follow some similar quantum laws. And what you can do is to take one pair of these particles, and in some way you have them interact with each other in the laboratory, and you shoot one off to wherever it may go. And the entanglement interpretation shows that the two either electrons or photons or whatever you're using have the certain same properties that will hold good for the rest of the age of the universe, and unless something comes along and well, I guess I would say.
Why don't I, Bernie, why don't I talk about the double slit experiment, because
Yeah, yeah.
that shows quantum entanglement. It's a
Yeah,
really
that's right.
famous experiment.
This is an experiment by Niels Bohr, by the way.
Oh,
Yeah.
he's the one that did the first experiment. People are
He
still
didn't do
doing
the
it.
experiment. He proposed it. It was not a big lab guy.
Oh.
He was a theoretician.
Okay, well, the double slit experiment is one of the most bizarre experiments in physics, and it cuts to the heart of the weirdness of quantum mechanics. So this experiment's done in a lab with a laser and a screen that has two narrow slits in it. The laser beam has to be wide enough to shine on both slits. When you cover up one of the slits, as the light from the laser passes through the open slit, a pattern will appear on the wall behind it. This pattern is due to the spreading out of light, a process called diffraction. In this case, specifically single slit diffraction. But if you uncover the second slit, the light going through the open slit will still undergo diffraction. But in addition, the light beams traveling through the two slits will interfere with each other. Did I say that right?
Well, the
think I got that
point here is that
confused.
they're tied together, and the theory says that they're tied together for whatever age you want of the universe, because they are connected to each other, even though you can't connect them in any way that is like a physical notion. They're entangled, and they support each other in a very mysterious kind of way that quantum mechanics has to get used to, but doesn't have any clue as to what is happening still.
It shows how the photons are connected to each other
Yeah.
in quantum entanglement.
If you're shooting
Yeah.
two photons away from each other, then it's the photons that get entangled. Or you can do it with electrons as well, or other more massive particles. I assume I've not seen much about that.
So the conventional explanation is that each photon somehow knows that even though it goes through slit A or B, it is also in the open position and vice versa. The wave is a wave of probability.
So it's kind of
yeah.
So it's kind of like when two twins are across the world from each other and one gets burned and the other one feels it.
That's right.
Exactly. You got it. Summed it up.
It's unexplainable, but there has been a lot. I mean, there has just been so much proof about these kind of things that have happened throughout history, like the twin thing. I mean, anyone who's ever been a twin understands that you feel it, or even a mother and a child. You feel like, oh, something's happened to my kid, and they just get this instinct that just pops in the second it happens. That's not quantifiable in materialism or in time and space, but there's something going on there, and I think we've all experienced it at one point or another. And I mean, we can use the example of a phone call. If the phone rings and you know who it is before you pick it up, there's some sort of weird connection that's in the quantum field or the what did you call it? The magnetic field that you were speaking of?
Electromagnetic field is 0-point energy.
Is that kind of like a quantum field?
Is it, Bernie?
Which
The 0-point energy. It's a vast electromagnetic field.
That's right.
Energy.
That's right.
I mean, Einstein and Max Planck knew about it, so people have known about it since the early 1900s. It's not a new theory, and it really is acknowledged.
So
the trick is, can we tap it? So Bernie has come up with an idea.
so how do you tap it? How do you tap it?
Oh, you want me to tell you about it? Sure. I have a little summary page that would actually help me. So it's broadly recognized as a vast field of electromagnetic energy. It's also known as the quantum vacuum field. This field represents the underlying energy that is everywhere in the universe, even where there is nothing but vacuum. It's composed of every frequency or wavelength that exists. Some are short and others are long. It's perfectly random. It's an infinite source of energy. And Bernie and our company Jovion, JOVION.com, if anyone wants to look us up, has come up with a way that we believe could provide humanity with an endless supply of totally clean energy without violating the second law of thermodynamics. Our process has nothing to do with heat, it is electromagnetic. So there's a Casimir force that happens between two parallel metal plates that are pushed together by an overpressure of the ZPE from the outside of the plates. And the reason is because if the plates are really, really close together, the longer waves of the ZPE cannot get into the plate,
Mhm.
can't pass through. So it becomes, like a little vacuum inside. And this is called the Casimir force. And it happens down at the nano level. So it's very, very tiny place. And it can be, we believe the ZPF can be manipulated through use of nano-sized Casimir cavities by squeezing out photon energy. Electron orbitals of an atom spiral down inside the cavity and photons are emitted. Our process then sends the photons through a photovoltaic cell and electricity will be generated. So in this way, it would be captured in a device we would call the Casimir generator
Mhm.
or the CG, and it's portable. You can use it for driving cars, for hospitals, kitchens, whatever you
Everything.
need.
Everything.
Yeah.
And it's
Is it,
it's a somewhat more more friendly to the environment than
Yeah.
the fusion energy would be, because here you're really taking nothing out of the energy of the universe, except doing that, taking the energy of the universe through your experiment.
So
So
So the air that passes through the Casimir cavity as it goes
sure.
back out to the main area, it's replenished. So we're not using up any resources.
so the situation is that
It-
we applied for a patent on this device, and we actually got a patent on it. It was some years ago, and it was quite thrilling to get that. But then came the awkward requirement to go find some money. So
Yeah,
we spent a lot of time
fundraising
doing
for the
that,
prototype.
and
We've had several experiments that had some very promising results, but we haven't had the funds to get the proper kind of Casimir cavity. We need to research and get more information to create a prototype. So that's
Is
where
it,
we're at.
well, that sounds fascinating. Is this technology that you guys are talking about, did Tesla touch upon any of this, or was that a completely different way that he was trying to do kind of like this free energy?
he was trying it the way we described,
He was
but
trying
also he had other things in mind that were sometimes not so
broadcasting electricity.
Yeah.
Remember towers?
yeah.
Yeah, this is not like that.
Okay.
Certainly,
Ours is on, portable on location, wherever you are.
I wouldn't hesitate to give some credibility to
Tesla.
Tesla.
He was
a
brilliant. He was a
yeah,
genius. Yeah.
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 Absolutely. Without question. And they're still trying to figure out a lot of the stuff that he was talking about back then.
And better of our alternating current, which the world works on. So he deserves a lot of credit.
He did, yeah.
hmm Absolutely. Absolutely. So what you're saying in regards to this field that we're tapping into, as you were describing it, it sounds very much like the Force from Star Wars. It is around us, it's all around us. You can manipulate it and then just kind of it sounded very Force-like in that sense. Maybe you don't need to be a Jedi, but I'm just using that as an example.
Right. I'm sure
I think there's a lot of truth to the Force, actually.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I
Or
mean,
you-
but go ahead, Bernie.
um, this was something that certainly could have crossed Nikola Tesla's desk, and he would be very comfortable with this. And the thing is that the energy inherent in this field is literally infinite. And so you can pick out pieces of it that are at wavelengths that are not going to be, let me use the word belligerent, because most weapons, or most experiments and theories wind up somehow or other supporting weapons.
Yeah,
I would
this
say that
cannot be used for weapons.
yeah, this I think intrinsically
Which is
cannot
good.
be used, cannot be used for any weapon because you pick out certain frequencies in the field, you can extract them if we're correct, but you're not going to extract a whole bunch of other stuff which could become explosive, as in it's a hydrogen bomb. And so there seems to be a benevolent usage of the 0 point field that couldn't be turned into weapons by anybody, no matter how much money is thrown at it.
Yeah.
Is it, and you use the word frequency, and I think that's a very interesting word to use because on a spiritual standpoint, frequency is spoken about so much that you have to change your vibration. The lower the frequency, the soul is at a lower frequency, so it attracts certain things to it. The higher the frequency, you could feel that energy. Do you believe that the universe is just essentially frequency, that frequency is fundamental?
Well, we think the universe is consciousness, really.
Yes,
But is that consciousness a frequency? Is the question.
What is frequency? Frequency without something to frequent is an undefinable.
Right.
You can make anything have a frequency. Guitar is an excellent example. The frequencies are the various notes you find in the scale. So the frequency has to be defined in terms of what it is that's frequenting.
Mm.
At this
Interesting.
point, I would just like to let everyone know that Bernie has Parkinson's. So if he's slow speaking, it's because of his illness. He's doing an amazing job
Yes, he
doing
is.
reviews and doing this book. By the way, this is his 4th book.
That's
By
excellent.
Yeah. Well, no, I helped him write this book because it's hard for him to type, and I actually put a lot of my own ideas into it too. So
Very good. No, I appreciate you letting everybody know that. I was going to let them know as well. It's very courageous what you're doing, Bernard, about
Yeah.
with these interviews and getting this information out into the world. And that's what I'm trying to do with this show, as well as to have these conversations reach a mass audience as much as we possibly can. Now, I wanted to ask you, this is one of my favorite topics. I'd love to hear your point of view on it. Simulation theory, the idea that we are in a conscious simulation, very much Matrix-like from the movie The Matrix. I don't believe that we're in a side of a computer somewhere and there's some teenage alien playing us as a simulation. I don't believe that. But the concept of Maya from the Vedic text, or the dream from the Aborigines, or so many other things, the concept of the illusion that we are all part of has been around for thousands of years. And now physics is starting to catch up to this idea. Quantum physics is starting to catch up. I'd love to hear your point of view on it.
Well, in fact, that's the central point of our book. Lay down not a proposal, but a suggestion, a model. Yeah, it's a model of reality that applies to all living things and all planets and us and so on. And this assumes that there is what God would do, this idealized God, is try to as Marx said, create companions of the sort, and but mainly to exercise his own abilities by creating what he imagines. And that would be a lot more fun if you create what you imagine than doing just the hard work of imagining and not creating it. So think of God wanting for some crazy reason to go ski down a mountain. Okay, except wants to go skiing. Well, can he do that as God?
no.
No, he can't, because even God can't make the ski boots or skis that would suit or accommodate his principles. So if he wants to go skiing one day, all he has to do is create a ski resort and ski apparel, and he can go ski as much as he wants to.
Through human beings, he experiences through the human beings at ski.
Right, and then the importance of this thing that has been done is that he will understand what can be done with the laws of physics that he has created, and that's in fact the whole purpose of it. Because if God did not have some outside reference to work against and compare his understanding with other people, then there would be no fun in the skiing down the mountain. And
Yeah. In other words, God wanted to create a universe full of interesting stuff
Yeah.
so he could play and learn and grow. And, you have to experience. And he couldn't experience as a consciousness, but he could experience through us and all the animals on the planet
Yeah.
and, other living beings.
What fun is it to play Monopoly if,
You have no game mates,
yeah,
right?
you haven't invented it yet.
Yeah.
So,
So we're proposing that God imagines all of the cosmic reality, the universe, by organizing his thoughts into computer-like algorithms that run in his mind.
mhm.
This requires unbelievable bandwidth and data storage, but it solves one of the greatest mysteries of all time. So God is a mathematician. And if you look at the world around us, math is apparent in every aspect, especially in physics and science, but
Especially now.
even in music,
And art, yeah.
art is full of mathematics. Oh yeah, the golden mean in art and music. Well, so music is based on math, really. I mean, the distance between every octave, Bach made sure he measured it out correctly. Johann Sebastian Bach, the father of modern music, um, created each half step to be the square root of 2.
12th root.
12th root of 2, not square root, 12th root of 2. Yeah. And then and by doing that, every instrument could play together in an orchestra or a band because they would all be in tune with each other.
Are we hearing each other now?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I've been using that concept of the algorithm, God's algorithm, for a while now. It's the first I've heard that used it as well, because I
Oh
always
yeah.
thought it was because I've been using it as an example because people are like, well, if we have free will, then how can we have predestinies and all this kind of stuff? Like, we're down here to go down certain predestined paths, but if you have free will, how is that possible? And I was like, well, it seems to me that we're God's algorithm, because an algorithm has a direction, but it kind of does what it wants and can figure things out in ways that the creator of the algorithm, didn't see coming. So it would learn. It's AI essentially. It's learning and growing, but it's going on its own direction. So the algorithm has free will within a box of parameters that it's
Right.
set in. So it sounds very similar to what we are down here. And this is just the one planet, let's not even talk about the billions and billions of other planets in the universe. God knows what's sitting around, other algorithms that are being tested around the universe as well, which is very, very interesting.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
God has a motive. I mean, to figure out, for us to be sitting here and having our different ideas that basically explain what God's motivation is, that's highfalutin thinking, and if we're right, we've got something that should appeal to a lot more people than the materialistic versions of God on one side and the I don't believe in God, I'm an atheist on the other side. I think we've offered a good starting point for a reasonable middle that is not only going to, I think, be compatible with materialism and psychism, but it's going to be a learning tool even for God himself to learn how or what he is and what can be done, which is infinite.
Well,
Yeah, go on.
no, I was going to say, it's like when you're a kid and you're playing with your Barbies or you're playing with your GI Joes, you as the creator, the God of that environment that you've created, you have characters and you have a predestined way that you're fighting with them or telling a little story or things like that. But you as the creator understand where the story is going because you're creating the story as we go along. But as an algorithm, it's kind of like throwing a GI Joe and a Barbie together and like, let's see what happens. And that's a much more exciting story because you really truly don't know which way it's going to go. So the idea of us being the algorithm of God makes so much more sense than there's this big puppeteer, just because that's boring. If it's just a boring story, it's a boring way of looking at what we do here. So this free will thing is really fundamental to this entire cosmic simulation that we're all kind of sitting in.
Definitely. Yeah, I have an interesting quote I was going
Yeah.
to read Brian Whitworth, a professor of information processing and technology in New Zealand, puts it all this way. One of the mysteries of our world is how every photon of light, every electron and quark, and indeed every point of space itself seems to just know what to do at each moment. The mystery is that these tiniest parts of the universe have no mechanisms or structures by which to make such decisions. Only God, the algorithm, could make those decisions.
Yeah, that's right.
I was thinking the other day, I don't know if you guys have animals or not, or have had animals in your life, but I was looking at my cats. I have a couple cats, and I was looking at them, and the way they react to us as a family, they're kind of like small algorithms with sets of rules. Cats will be cats. Cats will not be a dog, won't be a giraffe. It has its pre-built algorithm of how it reacts to us. And I was just
Mhm.
looking at them like, well, if that's the case, then a tree has its own algorithm. A tiger has its own algorithm. A bear has its own algorithm in the sense of the way it interacts with us. That's why I always get upset when people are like, "Oh, that tiger went crazy." No, the tiger went tiger. Uh,
Yeah,
you got
tiger.
it. You got in its way. It didn't get in your way, kind of situation. But it again goes along with this idea of this algorithm that everything, every blade of grass, every bird that's flying, it has its own pre-built programming or way that it interacts with this environment. Does that make sense?
It does, very
Yeah.
much so, yeah.
I think you put it really well. Perfect. Yeah, the
So,
cat algorithm, the dog algorithm, the turtle algorithm.
But they're only propensities.
I had a turtle for a long time.
oh yeah, as they do tend, their algorithm lives a long time if you feed them right. But there's all these sets of rules, and even something as something as simple as a blade of grass is conscious. It's not the
Yeah.
level of consciousness that you and I might have, but when the sun comes out, it angles itself to get the sun.
Mhm.
And there were some amazing experiments I saw. I forgot who was doing it, but they were seeing how conscious a plant was, and they would plant a seed, and they would see where the roots would go, and
Mhm.
they would put an empty dish and a dish with water underneath the soil to see where it would go, and it would automatically go toward every time to where the water was. It just instinctively knew, its programming knew it needed to get water. Then they actually played the sound of water to
Mhm.
see if it would do it, and it went after the sound of water as well. I mean, it's just really fascinating, these ideas of what is conscious and what is not conscious in the world today. What do you think about that experiment?
Well, I think it's a good one, and there
Yeah.
are other experiments that show that the plants in general have a consciousness of some sort. They can react to external stimuli. Um, and well,
I have to tell you, when I was getting my teaching credential at the University of California at Santa Barbara,
Mhm.
we as student teachers conducted an experiment in a room. We grew plants to different kinds of music to see how they would respond.
Sure.
So we had a section that listened to classical music, and those plants grew tall and straight and flourished. Then we had some plants that were listening to rock music, and they got a little bit jaggedy, a little twisted. And music was soothing to the plants, but they didn't grow as tall and straight as the classical music. Isn't that interesting? That's
That's
because
it.
classical music is very mathematical. And I was talking about that earlier when I was talking about the mathematical nature of music.
Mhm.
And I mean, when you think about the rhythm notations, the quarter notes, eighth notes, half notes, and time signatures, I mean, it's all based on math. And I think this is one of the things I wonder about music, whether God uses music as his mathematical expression or algorithm through sound. Is it possible that music is mathematical because the universe was designed by a pure mathematician?
Mhm.
It has the greatest influence on us of anything abstract in the world, and it undergirds all of society. It's impossible to get away from music.
Yeah,
And music,
completely.
yeah, it's everywhere. It's all pervasive from classical music. I mean, I have to say I'm a little bit more biased towards classical music because I'm a music teacher and opera singer, but I still like pop. I still like rock. I like DJ music, and you can experience God through music in church if you go to a church service.
Well, you know
So
what's
there's
really
a, yeah,
Well, you know what's really interesting? I come
yeah.
from filmmaking. I've been a filmmaker for many years, and I
Oh,
worked in Hollywood. And story is also something that's everywhere. You can't get away from story. It is
that's true.
absolutely every aspect of our life, even from like this is what just happened to me when I walk down the street. We constantly are telling each other stories, but the classic stories that have stood the test of time are mathematical in the beats of when certain things have to happen in the story that the Joseph Campbell put it the hero's journey. That's why
Mhm.
a story like Star Wars hits these beats so perfectly. And then you start analyzing old films and you just oh, there's the beat, there's the beat, there's the beat, there's the beat. It is absolutely mathematical. And art, I mean, just look at the Mona Lisa or you look at a Van Gogh and you can start breaking down the mathematics of art where it doesn't seem like it is, but it's there, always underlining behind the scenes.
Oh yeah, I'm also a graphic artist, and every time I start a project, like if I'm doing a flyer for my opera
Hmm.
company, I'm on a board of an opera company called Verismo Opera. It's in San Francisco Bay Area, and I have to measure everything out. Like, what size do I want the card? What are the margins going to be like? How big is this logo supposed to be? What font size? What font type? How is it going to fit into this little space? How are you going to balance everything out? I mean, it's all mathematics, but
And
it has to
and
be pleasing to the eye, right?
and that's the thing, isn't it
Yeah.
interesting though? Like when you look at something that's off balance as a graphic designer, because I've been doing graphic design for many years as well,
Oh,
you can't if you're a layman and doesn't understand graphic design and you look at something, you'll just go, that doesn't feel right. But then you move like, oh, let's just move it over to the left. Oh, okay, that feels better. It's
Mhm.
yeah.
fascinating. It's fascinating to see, like, we as graphic designers can kind of see what's going on behind the scenes because we have the theory and understanding of it, and also just our instinctual eye that we've developed over years and years of working in that space. But when something's off, the layman or the man or woman on the street won't know what it is wrong, but they can tell. Same thing with music, same thing
Yeah.
with story, same thing with movies, same thing with art. They could just sense something is off. That's why when anything veers from the standard story structure that has been around for thousands and thousands of years, people, mass people generally don't like it. That's why every big blockbuster runs through that same structure in many versions of it, but still runs through that structure. And when it's off, when you watch a Fellini film, it's very different than when you watch Titanic.
Oh, yeah.
The beats are slightly different, or a
Yeah.
David Lynch film for that matter.
They're all good.
But they all have a different
Yeah.
different thing. It's very interesting. Now, I wanted to ask you guys, what from an astrophysics standpoint, can astrophysics inform the concept of reincarnation or rebirth?
Well, I don't think that anything out of astrophysics could have much relevance here. But in fact, I believe in reincarnation. I think it's essential to let God carry out his plans.
Mhm.
Um, you see, if you want to have a rich life, you want to be able to live it according to your own free will. And that free will would not be possible if we woke up one morning and said, "Well, gee, I've reincarnated, and now I'm this." So it would be worthless to live a life in that that kind of reward system because you would know what you've done before and do it differently, and it would hinder your abilities to operate as an independent, powerful human being. So
Well,
it's that I see as the biggest asset of
of
reincarnation,
reincarnation.
that you can live multiple lives and that they have a purpose, and that purpose is that you can live better and better lives if you go through them, with
And you can
conscious-
make up for mistakes that you made before. You get other chances.
Right, but you're,
It's not like a one-time thing and wow, oh, I blew it. I guess I'm going to hell.
think- yeah.
Right, right. But the thing is that the key to that is that we forget that we're
Yeah.
not informed about those other lives or why we're even here is the discovery aspect, because according to spiritual masters I've spoken to and near-death experiencers is that there is a plan that we come down here with, but
Right.
we don't know the plan. We have to kind of discover it. And sometimes we have the free will to go off course and completely
Exactly.
We
miss the point.
But you know what? We know, I mean, at least I can speak for myself, all right?
Sure.
I know when a certain something happens in my life, a certain episode, I know what I'm supposed to do. I can see two choices. I can see, yeah, well, if I follow through on this, it's going to be kind of tough, but I'm pretty sure I'm supposed to do it because the alternative is to go and do something else. For instance, writing this book. So Bernie has been working on it. He worked on it for about 5 years, but because he got Parkinson's, he was having problems completing it.
Mm.
And he was kind of hinting that he needed help, but he didn't actually ask for it, except one day he said, "Okay, Marcia, I really want to finish this book." By the way, we're a husband and wife team, I should say. We've been together for 36 years, so I know him really
Mhm.
well. But he asked me for help, and he said, "If you help me, you can put your name on the book alongside mine." And that made all the difference in the world. And then I knew, I mean, I spent several months helping him clean this book up, organize it, edit it, whatever. But I knew that was one of my purposes here, was to help him write this book. And I
Mm.
think it's his most powerful book, really.
That is
Can I
beautiful.
mention the title?
Of course, yeah, of
Okay,
course.
The Miracle of Our Universe. Um,
Well, let me ask you though, this book, it is coming out, it is available now in this time period.
Yeah, it came out in
Would it,
October.
so would this book have even been accepted 30 years ago?
Probably not.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, Bernard would have been probably laughed out of the field at that point in time.
Agreed.
Is that fair?
Yeah, that's fair. That's a possibility. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm stating that because it just seems that everything is just shifting so much that these ideas are being more and more widely accepted by people. I mean, I don't remember a time where, someone like me is sitting down with an astrophysicist or a quantum physicist and talking deep, physics kind of conversations mixed in with spirituality. This really didn't exist 10 years ago, 20 years ago in a mass way. But now there's
Yeah.
shows talking about it all the time. So I think do you believe it is the time for this information to start hitting the masses?
I think
Well,
it's time for that, and also it's time for
it's a
the
new view of consciousness, God, science, and reality, which is what's going on right
what
now.
I want to
Go on.
allude to is that I think it's also something that might be proven within the year or so, because we have a huge number of aerial phenomena that have been observed
Mhm.
in the last several years. I follow this pretty diligently because I think it's really deeply involved, and we are deeply involved with that as a way to have our civilization go through a phase transition from what we have now to something much different. And
Mhm.
so I'm
With
kind
all
of,
the observations of the UFOs or UAPs,
yeah,
whatever.
I'm really
Yeah.
quite jazzed by that, because I think that if it comes out as I suspect it will, it's going to upset the world significantly, and hopefully
Oh,
make it improve.
absolutely. And I think we have to kind of I think we have as a species have to get to a certain consciousness to even accept this idea without
Yeah,
us completely losing our minds. And I think that we have been growing in consciousness. Humanity's consciousness has been evolving. I think at a very fast rate over the last 10 years. I mean, because what the strides that have been made in these kind of conversations in the last 10 years probably are more than they were made in the last 100 prior.
yeah,
I mean, it's
yeah.
just been very fast.
As horrible as the pandemic was,
Mhm.
it gave us all time to have our own personal internal space and dialogue. which we often don't get because we're
Yep.
so busy with things and, our lives. But during the pandemic, that probably was a turning point for our race. We decided to get more spiritual. We started meditating because we had time to meditate.
Yeah, I mean, if you would have told me the entire world shut down for 6 weeks, I mean, to the point where the dolphins came back to Venice. Uh, I
They,
mean, to the canals of Venice, like literally after like a few weeks, they were coming back into the city. I would have said you're insane. That sounds like a science fiction movie. But in our lifetime, the entire world pretty much shut down to a certain extent for about 6 weeks. And then of course it took a long time for everybody to come back out.
yeah,
But you're right. It was a very difficult time for all of us, but in many ways hidden blessings to giving us that time to kind of reflect on our lives to the point
yeah,
now that the West are like, no, I don't want to work 9 to 5, work 40 to 60-hour weeks for 40 years and then get a watch. That doesn't exist anymore. That's gone. I
yeah,
want to work at home. I want to do this. I want to have life work balance. That didn't exist
yeah.
pre pre-pandemic. Now, guys, I want to ask you a few questions I ask all of my guests.
Okay.
What is your definition of living a fulfilled life?
Uh, Realizing my dreams is fulfilling my life. I have a lot of dreams, things that I want to achieve. I've actually done a lot of the things. Maybe finishing this book is one of the biggest ones.
Hmm.
Because sharing uh, thoughts that I've had, intuitions I've had, with the world for anyone who cares to read the book. We put our heart and soul into this book. So, and Bernie, especially, I mean, I helped him shape his ideas. So it really is kind of a synthesis of all your ideas, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So I guess fulfilling my life is fulfilling my dreams and having a richness of, joy and happiness and love and healing and light, whatever. What's a fulfilled life for you, Bernie?
Well, yeah, writing something like a series of books is certainly, yeah, I feel that's accomplished something that I came here to do and I'm proud of, and it accomplishes a purpose, I think. So that's what to me is a fulfilled life. Um,
Yeah, he finished it. He said he always had the dream from when he was a young boy that he wanted to write about God and science.
yeah,
He did
Beautiful.
it.
I did it, yeah,
That's beautiful. That's
I guess
beautiful.
that's true, yeah.
Yeah, so he has 4 books. He has The God Theory, The Purpose Guided Universe, Proof of God with Ptolemy Tompkins, and then The Miracle of Our Universe, A New View of Consciousness, God, Science, and Reality by
Yes.
Bernie and myself. We have a copy here. So
Beautiful.
yeah, so that's fulfillment.
All right.
What's
Now, if
fulfillment to you, Alex?
oh, I think I'm doing it. I'm
Yeah,
doing it. I mean, I've from where I came from, being a filmmaker and working with Oscar winners and all that kind of stuff back in the day, to do a spiritual podcast, which is completely outside of my, my comfort zone when I started it,
yeah.
and it's fallen into something that is shaping and impacting millions of people around the world. This is I feel that I'm very fulfilled doing this kind of work. So
Yeah, it
it's
is really
interesting.
fulfilling. Yeah, to share spirituality.
Our son is
And
also an up and coming filmmaker. He's looking for his big break to get into the film business.
Taylor Heish.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we
Recently,
we will we will have a conversation about it after we stop recording. I'll tell you all about the film business.
Oh, that'd be great. Yeah. Love that.
yeah,
Now,
Yeah.
if both of you had a chance to go back in time and speak to little Marsha and little Bernie, what advice would you give them?
you go first.
To little Marcia. Uh, be confident in myself. Be confident that I can be beautiful, that I can do great things.
Mhm.
I think that is one of the things that I've learned over time to gain confidence and then be confident that I have things to share with people around me. And I'm proud as little Marcia, big Marcia, of my ability to persevere. I've
Mhm.
always been a very persistent person. Bernie will tell you I don't give up, even long beyond what I should. I don't. I don't give up.
Good.
I always find workarounds. So
Excellent.
I guess that's one thing I would tell little Marcia too. Don't give up. Find a workaround if you run into a wall.
Fair
That's
enough.
important.
Very important. Very important.
Yeah.
And you, Bernie?
Well, it's hard to say. I have two kids, and in terms of what they would learn from, um,
Three.
that's right. Two of my own, and one is an adopted
Hmm.
daughter from Marcia's. So, what to say to them? Um, I guess to be true to themselves and try to find something that is really significant to them that they can invest their abilities and also their yearnings for. And that would be if I do that um, in the right way, then if I look back at that and say I have done it in the right way, that would be fulfilling. It's a big roundabout babble. I just
Yeah, but
said it.
yourself, you fulfilled your dreams,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah. He fulfilled his dreams. I mean,
And
he still has more to go, I'm sure, but for right now, at this point in time, he has kept going. He has not given up.
In fact, I would say that
Yeah.
probably this book carries more weight to me in terms of my thinking of it as a healing tool and something to provide information for mankind. I would say this outweighs my scientific papers. I have over 100 scientific papers,
300.
over 300, no, something like 100.
Yeah.
And I've done other things in astrophysics. You know, I spent 10 years as a scientific editor for the Astrophysical Journal. So
mm,
I have a cadre of scientists that were responsible for accepting or rejecting the research in that field that goes on. And I was one of 10 for a year. So there are other things besides the books and that, but it's been probably in a pretty good life.
Yeah.
now, how do you define God?
God, a great cosmic consciousness that creates reality and, as we said earlier, spun off the universe and the star systems and the planets and the humans and the animals, spun them off so that God, he, she could have experiences. So, because we're a creation of God, we're a spark of God. So we see it as God as a consciousness. You could say it was a force. Consciousness is a force, it's an awareness. Did I leave anything out that you want to say about God?
A million of things probably.
Probably.
Okay,
Yeah, but it's the higher power.
of
And
course.
well, so oftentimes people approach God when they're in great need. So otherwise they are kind of oblivious.
Mhm.
But God can answer our prayers. And so I guess this is something important. I want to say, how do you realize or how do you know if God actually answered your prayer? And does God answer all of our prayers? So God gives you answers, but not necessarily in the time frame that you would like. Sometimes right away, sometimes down the road. You can see answers in by observing the world around you. I mean, sometimes you might get an answer from God by looking at a road sign, and the answer is right there embedded in the road sign message, or by looking at a license plate, or coming out of the mouth of a friend, or, a
Mhm.
radio
Mhm.
program you are listening to. But your prayers do get answered, just not always in the way you might expect. So, do you have anything else to say about prayers? And prayers, oh, it's important when you pray to God to be really clear about what it is you want. Not just some vague thing like, oh,
Sure.
pray for Deborah or what. You want to say, well, these are the things that I would like to come about. That she's healed, that her back is perfect, she has love in her life and
Mhm.
joy and friends, that kind of stuff. Not just a
Mhm.
general prayer, but exactly what would you like to see in that person's life appear. So God really
Beautiful.
knows what kind of answers you're looking for.
And
Taste, use your five senses, you know,
fair enough,
taste,
fair enough.
touch, smell, feel. Yeah.
Now, where can people find out more about you and the amazing work you guys are doing in the world?
Well, we have a website. It's www.themiracleofouruniverse.com. And we're also on Facebook, The Miracle of Our Universe. You just search for it in Facebook and it pops up. I have an Instagram account, Marcia Sims 40, and the book is available for sale on Amazon and other major bookseller outlets like Barnes and Noble and Walmart and Target. So I guess those are the major places.
Fair
Look on our
enough.
publisher, Red Wheel Wiser. There's the page about us there.
I have
Okay.
plenty of ways to get to us.
Yeah, plenty of
Yeah.
ways to get to us.
And do you have any parting messages for the audience?
Well, I would just like to share with everyone how you can get your guaranteed ticket to heaven, because that was the original title of our book, by the way. And so I wanted to, I put this in the book, and it's in the book in the back section. So I wanted to share everyone, you have a guaranteed ticket to heaven because you are a spark of God and you're part of him or her. The alternative would be hell. Answer is because we are sparks of God. Why would God condemn a part of himself to eternal fire and damnation? It's illogical.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if someone does something that, deserves negative karma, well, it can be paid off. If you do enough good deeds, but it can be paid off. So, how you experience heaven while you're here on earth? It's important to be in a state of gratitude because this opens your mind for optimism, love, and God's still small voice. The good news is that anyone, even you, can achieve this if you take the time to meditate and distill your monkey mind. It may take a lot of practice because the mind likes to loop around in thoughts. So one of the ways that I still my mind is I sit in a quiet place and count backwards from 100. And I sometimes have to do it so fast to stop the thoughts that there's not a space for a thought to come in, but it does slow down.
Mm-hmm.
And then as it slows down, you can melt right into the beauty and grace of God. I get a lovely kind of spring green and purple and some magentas, and they kind of swirl around inside my mind's eye. And then I know that I am communicating with the cosmic consciousness.
That was beautiful, Marcia. Thank you so
Yeah.
much. I want to thank both you and Bernie for coming on the show and not only talking with me today for my audience, but also for the amazing work that you're doing to raise the consciousness of the planet. So I appreciate both of you. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
You're welcome. Our pleasure. You're a delightful host. Great.
Thanks for watching. Click on one of the videos below to continue your journey and don't forget to subscribe.